that one day down in Alabama with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls.
These are the words said to have changed America and the world forever. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a formidable individual in US history for his struggle and fight against racial inequality during the Civil Rights Movement. To coin the words of President Abraham Lincoln, America was a house divided. The system of Jim Crow saw the segregation and demonization of African Americans from wider society in all spheres of life, under the idea of separate but equal. This following over 2 centuries of the enslavement of people of African descent.
What happens when a man stands up, says enough is enough?
We built the path as we came, rock by rock.
Culmination of the movement, which included the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott and 1963 Birmingham protests, has been depicted by award-winning filmmaker Ava DuVernay's Oscar Award-nominated film, Selma, which tells the story of Martin Luther King's fight to help black people gain equal voting rights.
There are 70 million people watching. These pictures are going around the world.
A lesser well-known part of King's story and the closing chapter in his fight for racial equality relates to labor rights. In Memphis, Tennessee, he protested with and supported a sanitation workers' strike in late March of 1968, where over 5,000 demonstrators carried signs which read, "I am a man." However, the peaceful demonstration took a turn for the worse when an estimated 200 participants began breaking storefront windows and looting. Deeply troubled by the violent outbreak, King vowed to return to Memphis to lead a peaceful demonstration. 86-year-old Elmore Nickelberry still remembers the day.
That's what I remember the day he always said, he's going to bring the second march. Then he said, a non-violent march. See, he believed in non-violent.
On April 3rd, 1968, nearly 2 months after the initial start of the strike, King returned to Memphis and delivered what would be his last public speech, known as the I Have Seen the Mountaintop speech.
Long life, longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will.
The following evening, King was assassinated by bullet at the age of 39 on the balcony of a motel. The hotel is now a museum, and its curator recalls Dr. King's last moments in room 306.
What happens next is that he's leaning over the balcony talking to Ben Branch, a jazz saxophonist, whose version of Precious Lord Dr. King really enjoyed. And he said, Ben, when we get to the rally tonight, I want you to play the saxophone, he said, and play it real pretty. And Ben Branch says, you know I will, Doc. Shortly thereafter, Dr. King is struck by an assassin's bullet and falls down here on the balcony of room 306.
It is a moment that prominent civil rights activist Jesse Jackson, who was in Memphis with King, says is still raw.
It's always a source of pain and anxiety. You take the scab off and the sore is still raw. It happens so suddenly, in the middle of a conversation, on the way to dinner. He'll always be 39.
As the news of King's assassination spread, riots broke out in more than 100 cities across the United States, with some raging for several days. In the week following the shooting in Memphis, hundreds of buildings were burned, thousands of arrests were made, and more than 40 people lost their lives. A flower shop owner in Washington, D.C. was 25 when riots broke out in the American capital following the assassination. He remembers seeing smoke in the skies and sitting up through the night with a shotgun to protect his family's shop from looters.
I came up here so I could make sure that my mom was protected and the shop was protected. And so, because we didn't know who was burning who, you know what I mean? So anyway, I came up and we wrote Soul Brother on our window to let folk know. We thought it was probably black folk because black folk were upset by Martin Luther King getting shot. And so we said, okay, we put Soul Brother on the window to let them know this was a black-owned establishment.
"50 years after his death, the vision of racial equality that King outlined on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial remains elusive. Jason Sokol, a history professor at the University of New Hampshire, said there have been some advances for African Americans over the years, culminating in the 2008 election of Barack Obama, America's first black president. But high levels of black poverty, black incarceration rates, and the issue of police brutality still exists. Whilst others believe that by the time of his death, King's ambitions had gone beyond civil rights to embrace human rights. The legacy of Martin Luther King is one that will continue to provoke debate as to whether or not his dream has been realized or will in time come to be realized in a country which is currently under the most controversial administration in modern US history. But there is no doubt that many in the US and around the world will continue to walk in his path.
With determination.